Your neighborhood just got cooler with Kroger Delivery's refrigerated trucks. Simply order groceries at the same great prices online as in-store, and we'll bring them to you fresh every time. And if that wasn't cool enough, you can now earn 4 times the fuel points after 4 with your digital coupon. Choose a next-day Kroger Delivery time slot for 4 p.m. or later on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Must deliver by February 4th. Restrictions apply. See Kroger.com for details.
Driving on stormy nights can become so difficult that you may wish you had the eyes of a night creature, like an owl or a tarsier. What's a tarsier? Well, it's like a... Look, it doesn't matter. Bosch Night Performance Wiper Blades reduce blur and glare, clearing away rain, so you can drive even better than a tarsier, whatever that is. Night vision has evolved. Bosch Night Performance Wiper Blades.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are now boarding Group A. Please have your boarding passes ready to scan. If your phone is cracked, old, or was chewed up by your Chihuahua travel companion, please refrain from holding up the line. And instead, simply go to Verizon and trade in any phone in any condition from one of their top brands for the new Samsung Galaxy S25 Plus with Galaxy AI on Unlimited Ultimate and a watch or tab. Also, on Now. Service plan required for watch or tab. Trade in and additional terms apply. See Verizon.com for details.
Funbelt Podcast.
Funbelt Podcast.
Funbelt Podcast.
Funbelt Podcast.
It's just a great conference that is at a point right now where I think clearly the best Group of 5 conference in the country.
The state of Sunbelt football is the strongest in our history.
And we got to continue to showcase what our league is about.
This league is insane.
Yeah, it might be like one of those 8 wonders of the world.
And you can see just what a great Group of 5 conference it really is.
It's a big deal.
Boy, life is looking pretty good in the Sun Belt these days.
I thought we did have great energy. I did not think we packed the rock, though. You know, I'll be honest. I am so excited about the fans that were here and the energy they brought, but I'm so disappointed in the amount of people that was here. You know, and hey, man, I know I got to coach better. And I know there's a lot of fans that didn't come out there because they think I can't coach, and that's fine. All right? But it would be nice if we would come here and support these kids and get this rock back going. I thought our overall crowd number tonight was embarrassing. I know. Hey, and I was embarrassing. I'm sure the people that didn't come was embarrassed to have me coach tonight. That's fine. You know what I mean? But like, we got to get in this together. You know, that's the thing about Southern Miss is when we're all pulling together, we can do it. And, you know, this side right here, how I had, you know, our students, and outside of that, almost no people in it. Our side had a lot in it, and I thought the suites were awesome. So I really appreciate those people. And, look, we're going to continue to build this program back. There's going to come a day where the rock is packed, and I really hope our fans will jump on board with us and do that sooner rather than later, just like we got to get over this hump and start winning sooner rather than later.
Will Hall, Southern Miss head coach, brings us in. Frustration already mounting after 1 week, guys, in Hattiesburg. Grant you, they did drop the game to Liberty 29-27 in 4 overtimes. Who knew that after 2 overtimes, you just go for 2?
That's how you do it.
That's how you do it.
I guess. Oh, my God. But by the way, what does Will Hall have to complain about? He's got this great crowd that came. I mean, I know it wasn't like Alabama numbers or Ohio State numbers.
3rd highest in the Sun Belt.
Right. Why does he have a gripe here? I mean, he's coming back. He's coming in with a team that that didn't perform well last year against a team for which Southern Miss has no history. What's his problem?
By the way, the audio was given to us by Andrew Batty of the Pine Belt Sports Network, who was there in attendance to give us the audio clip of that nice little rant to close it out. I thought Ole Miss did look good against Troy.
Sure, why not?
But in Southern Miss, I thought that they actually looked like a train wreck. In all honesty, they still don't have a quarterback. Frank Gore was probably their most successful quarterback, throwing a 48-yard pass. Ty Keys had 2 interceptions before he had to leave from the targeting. That was a cheap shot, by the way, Liberty. But Frank Gore was the man for the Eagles. 178 yards on the ground, 5 turnovers for the Eagles.
Yeah, and not only that, correct me if I'm wrong, I only got some of the backstory, but some missed field goal opportunities too, right? That would have won the game
on both sides.
Yeah. So it was just kind of an ugly game for everybody, but maybe not the most disappointing game. I mean, I know it's disappointing to have Liberty at your house and be there to close escrow and not quite be able to do it. But I really thought that Texas State Nevada game, which might have been the most disappointing game in the Sun Belt.
Yeah, I'm with you. I expected it to be competitive. Like Nevada was not looking good going into that game, and it's not looking good for Texas State now. I mean, we're expecting to see some improvement, and at least in week one, it wasn't there.
I couldn't even put my finger on what was wrong with the Bobcats, because they had 10 penalties for 97 yards, 4 turnovers, including one from Lincoln Pear and Lane Hatcher. They rushed for negative 12 yards as a team, guys.
Now, didn't new quarterback Lane Hatcher, didn't he throw a pick too?
He had 2 interceptions.
Yeah,
but he had 2 touchdowns, 289 yards.
Yeah, I think one of those was a pick 6. Yeah, and if you put your finger into social media during and after all that, you'd see that there's not a lot of goodwill right now for Jake Spavital and the Texas State Bobcats. There seems to be some aggravation coming out of San Marcos. I don't know if that aggravation is going to boil into full outrage. I know they've got a game against FIU coming up. I feel like if something doesn't happen against FIU, heads might roll in San Marcos.
He seems to be the only coach in the Sun Belt really feeling much heat right now. Other guys are either winning or new enough that they've got some time to turn it around. But yeah, it's not the situation I'd want to be in if I was Jake Spavital right now.
You know what situation I would like to be in though? Coach Cignetti's situation, having crushed Middle Tennessee, just absolutely annihilated them in the first game for JMU as an FBS program. They walk in, they not only take care of business, but they take care of it in a way that says, hey, the Dukes belong in the Sun Belt, they belong in FBS. And I sensed, I'm not going to say arrogance, but a little bit of confidence from that fan base now.
A little bit, yeah. And I mean, they get that from their coach to some degree. I mean, Kurt Cignetti is a guy who always kind of exudes that confidence. But yeah, I mean, I was there in the building and I was thinking, the juice in this place, the excitement and everything might carry JMU to a 10-point, 14-point victory. I was not expecting them to just like physically dismantle Middle Tennessee State the way they did. They just owned the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. It was surprising how much more physical JMU was.
Not to take anything away from the Dukes, because I really don't. That was an impressive win. It really was. But was it that the Dukes were that much better, or is Middle Tennessee that bad?
Well, that's what I'm kind of waiting to find out. I'm curious about Middle Tennessee at Colorado State. Colorado State, I don't think is very good. Their coaching transition and everything. So it'll be interesting to see if they're competitive in another FBS road game, because, it's been a solid, if not great, program for a while at Middle Tennessee State, but they did not look good on Saturday at all. So maybe this is a big down year for them.
Yeah, Middle Tennessee's had some glory years. It's a program that knows how to win football games. I know this year might not be their best year. To me, it's still a great win. Tibbs, did you see that ODU game on Friday night?
I did. It was a huge win. It set the tone for the Sun Belt. But let's be honest, it was not a pretty win. It was nothing that was a real wow factor. The Monarchs had to force 5 turnovers to really make up for sluggish offense. And it was the fact that they had the ball more that really got them to the win, as opposed to really beating Virginia Tech.
The Virginia Tech and ODU, it's weird. And we still got to kind of wait and see what ODU does after this. Should probably point out that this is a continuation of solid momentum for ODU at the end of last year. But we can also point out that when they beat Virginia Tech at home in 2018, that was the one win in a 7-game streak, 7 weeks in a row. They lost 3, beat ODU, then lost the next 3. So this doesn't necessarily, if history is an indication, it doesn't necessarily indicate that ODU is going to be, a world beater, but maybe they're better now than they were a couple of years ago.
A couple of things that stood out to me in that game, and I only caught the kind of like you, Shane. I only caught the fourth quarter, and it was not pretty football by any stretch. Two things that stuck out to me was that Hayden Wolf is going to have to be a better quarterback if he's going to want to see more wins coming down the stretch. I don't know what Virginia Tech looked awful too. I don't know if maybe both their defensives just somehow made each other look awful. I don't know. But I tell you, that enormous tight end for ODU is an impressive specimen. What's his name, Tibbs? You know his name.
Zach Kuntz.
Yeah. He's just so big. I was like, who is this guy? But
he's a big guy.
Yeah, he could be a weapon. He could absolutely be a weapon.
Is there
any other game? Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think one of the biggest takeaways of the weekend, really the Sun Belt, there was only one game that really got away from the conference, and that was the ULM Texas game. And quite honestly, that came down to 2 plays, and ULM covers. You put a true freshman in that's running in late for special teams that misses his blocked assignment, leads to a blocked punt for a touchdown, and then a frustrated quarterback that probably throws the rocket a little too hard for the receiver, pops the ball up, and it's an open seam for the DB for a pick 6. You take those 2 plays out, ULM covers just as we said.
So, Tibbs, you were at the game, right?
I was there. Did not fall out of my chair this year.
Well, I was wondering what was sort of the reaction of Texas fans with ULM out there. What did they kind of think about the team?
You would have thought that they were already playing Alabama. And I can tell you quite truthfully, that was a very fast Texas team, but they ain't going to do nothing this week against Alabama.
Yeah. I sense that's the same thing. Glad you saw good things in that loss against Texas, though. I didn't get to see much of the game. I just saw the stat line. Didn't look great. I saw that you were a little aggravated with some of the offensive line play from ULM. But
they were just overmatched. I mean, bigger guys, faster guys, and it was kind of frustrating that they were just not able to get a push. Should they have been able to? Maybe, but there's a reason that's the P5 versus G5 is, the offensive line and the defensive line. That's the difference really between the schools is what's going on in the trenches.
Now, I don't want to spend too much time on FCS before we talk a little bit about that North Carolina Appalachian State game, but I will say something about the performance the Sun Belt had against the FCS. Now, one FCS team of the 5 teams that played Sun Belt teams last week, now one FCS program scored more than 7 points. In fact,
the Cajuns 24-7 over Southeastern. I told you that game was going to be close.
It was uncomfortably close, even though Shane said that Southeast Louisiana are just punks. Turns out that they had something in store for Cajuns. Yeah, and I kind of thought maybe the Southeast Louisiana was going to find a way to pull out of that one. Not so. Shane, did you see any of that game?
I didn't see any of that game, but
what? I can't believe it.
No.
Yeah, I turned it on just in time for Garner's 83-yard punt return.
You saw that?
I did notice it was staying close longer than I expected. So yeah, I'll give Southeast Louisiana their props that I didn't give them last week because I talked down about them last week.
Well, I tell you, before we move on, the one thing I have noticed in the following days after that, the Cajuns have been very high on pushing their win streak, which they deserve. I think, was it 14-game win streak or something like that they have? Mm-hmm. One of the longest or the longest in FBS. But it almost feels like they're touting these wins now, knowing in the back of their mind that it's going to come to the end soon.
Well, I just wondered, I know their promotion this upcoming week is 14 wins, $14 tickets. So does that mean if they lose that it's $1 day?
That or they're increasing the price next week. I mean, come on, you kind of root for the streak to end, right?
Most definitely.
Shay, did you watch any of that North Carolina Appalachian State game?
I saw some of it in the press box before the JMU game started, and yeah, it was something. It was wild. I'll tell you what, I was on my way to the stadium and was not expecting 40 points to be scored during that quarter when I'm on my way to the stadium. I get there and I'm like, what? This is a game
How's
again?
Like, physically possible?
Yeah. That was pretty incredible. And then, yeah, so close, so far away for App State in this one, which has been the trend for them against the Power 5 teams historically, it seems like. But yeah, you definitely want to see a better defensive performance from them this week, even though they're playing, a really good Texas A&M team.
Tibbs, what was really exciting last weekend?
I know that I had a great time listening. I didn't get to watch it, but that App State North Carolina game was the game of the year already in Week 1.
Wait a sec. I wasn't even going to talk about that. But yeah, you're right. North Carolina versus Appalachian State. One of the most entertaining games I have seen in a long time. And here's something that I say that sometimes sparks a little anger online. I'll say if you're going to lose, at least lose entertainingly. If people say, no, there's no entertainment in a loss.
That's borderline FCS mentality, Jeremy.
I know, that's horrible. It's horrible for me even to go there. But I'm going there anyway because it was quite a fiasco. I had given up on the game. I think Appalachian State was down by 2 touchdowns at one point. I was like, this isn't going to happen. Good for Appalachian State. They put in a pretty good show, but it's over. And then it wasn't over. It wasn't over by a long chalk. With me today is TK Sherrill. He is a reporter with the News Reporter in Whiteville. And he's also a lifelong fan of Appalachian State. He was at the game. Thomas, do me a favor. Tell me what was a positive takeaway of that game and what was a negative takeaway of that game.
Well, I'd say you're absolutely right. And that was, in 17 years of going to App State games, that was by far the craziest game I've ever been to. There was a 3-score deficit, 41-21 going into the fourth quarter. The positives are, I think, pretty obvious in a 63-61 game is that I think this new offensive coordinator, Kevin Barbay, is going to work out.
Okay.
The App State tradition of the last 4 years is the offensive coordinator does a good job and he gets hired and somewhere else that make a lot more money. This is, I think, the 4th offensive coordinator in the last 4 years for App State.
Damn.
He came in and just there was variations of what we've done in the past. There was some new wrinkles. There was incorporation of the tight end more than we saw last year in a pass catching role. I think, 61 points. I think out of the 8 or 9 touchdowns, only one player scored 2 touchdowns. Different players scored. I think Nate Noel scored 2 touchdowns and I think 7 other players scored 1 touchdown.
Yeah, that was crazy. What I got from Chase Bryce going into the season was that he was a little pissed off not to have come away with the conference championship. So I knew he was going to put up some numbers. Did I read that right about Chase Bryce? He seems like he's a man on a mission.
Yes, I would say not only the conference championship, losing that at the end, but also losing in the Boca Raton Bowl to Western Kentucky and Bailey Zappi when he was throwing the ball over the place. That was just not App State's day. And so I think he's definitely come back on a mission trying to, help this App State offense. And because he's got all new receivers this year, all his 3 top receivers who were by far the three top pass catchers last year all graduated. Thomas Hennigan, Corey Sutton, Jalen Virgil, and also Malik Williams graduated. So that's the one thing Sean Clark said after the game is now we're have 8-9 receivers rotating in and out. So our receivers are not going to get tired at the end of the game. So I think that will help Chase Bryce out a lot more because he's more of your pocket passer who can run a little bit at times. He's gotten better at running. But, yeah, like that fourth quarter, the offense scored 40 points in the fourth quarter. No FBS team has done that in the last 15 years. That's crazy.
So with Chase Bryce obviously tearing up 361 yards, 6 touchdowns, Nate Noel, the running game was right there running with it as well. 2 touchdowns, 116 yards. Was it surprising to see that rushing attack just as potent as the passing attack?
Yes, Nate Noel was the spark. Cam Peoples was the starter at running back, but for whatever reason, the Tar Heel defense really keyed in on him, and Peoples wasn't getting his yards early in the game. So Noel comes in, and he was a spark at the running back position. He was able to, I think he's a little more dynamic runner. He can cut upfield. He's a little lighter, so kind of more shifty back. So he was able to really, pick up some of those key first downs. And also he's really good at pass protection as well, which gives Chase Bryce a little more time when those blitzes come in.
It all came down in that fourth quarter, the onside kick. What the hell happened with the onside kick? And were the North Carolina fans screaming for their guy to just lay down? And because if they do, that's it. It's game over in regulation.
You mean the first onside kick?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah. So they started celebrating because obviously you score a touchdown, it's happy, and you're not thinking in the moment because at this point everyone's brain is fried because App State came down, was down 20 points at the start of the fourth quarter, came back, and it was 41-21 going into the fourth. And at this point it was, I think, 56-55. So everyone's just on a different plane of existence at this point. They don't know what to think. So they see touchdown, they celebrate, and and it takes me a little bit. I'm like, that was actually the best thing that could have happened to us. But you look at the actual onside kick, the Tar Heel defenders, or I guess receiving team, they blow up the App State players on that side. They just completely level them, leaving a wide open lane for their guy to catch it and run it in, which is something they corrected on the second onside kick. But at that point, I thought there was a targeting call because there was a flag thrown during the play. So I didn't know what to think. And then they say touchdown stands, and then they kick the extra point. And I'm like, hey, we're still in this. Because that was foul. And so they were backed up to 20 for their kickoff, and we returned that kick to the 50.
Yeah, and to me, that was kind of the crazy part of the game. I was driving to Jonesboro at the time to get to the A-State game. I had the game up. Well, it was on the radio. It kept going back and forth. By the way, the announcing crew at ESPNU was very excited for this game, which I thought was great for the Sun Belt. They just kept going back to it. And it just seemed at one point that all the gas was gone from Appalachian State. North Carolina was just scoring and scoring and scoring, and the defense could not stop them.
Yep.
Thomas, do you feel like, I know that you guys came back offensively, do you feel like there might be some trouble on the defensive end of the ball for Appalachian State?
There was a lot of circling the wagons post-game among fans regarding the App State defense, just because of some of the standards they set last year defensively. Dale Jones, who's the defensive coordinator, he is a believer in blitzing. He will go after the quarterback. I think we sacked the UNC quarterback 4 times during the game. And one thing that App State didn't do in the first half, they were trying these outside blitzes from the outside that weren't working. So in the second half, they tried more inside blitzes, and those were working a little bit better. But you look at when it was 49-49 on a 3rd and long, there was App State went an all-out blitz. And Drake May got the pass off barely before he was just absolutely leveled. But the running back who caught it in the flats was wide open and ran in for a touchdown. So it was kind of an all or nothing situation because there were some issues, with what Sean Clark said, the eye discipline was not there for the defense. And also UNC's offense made several great plays. They made some very pinpoint passes, and the passing game is what really propelled them early in the game. And, for a while, UNC scored 34 straight points in the second and third quarters. App State did not score in the second or third quarter. So think about that. Scored 61. Didn't score in 2 whole quarters. So it was not only, sometimes there's the middle, what is called the middle 8, the last 4 minutes of the first half and the first 4 minutes of the third quarter. This was like a middle 30. Just with UNC dominating that game for a long stretch, and App State just really couldn't get anything together. They were out of rhythm on offense. UNC was in just a continuous rhythm, was able to, get these big plays. But later on, the defense got a little bit better, but there's definitely questions. Nick Hampton, defensive end, he came out of this game looking great because a lot of NFL scouts are saying he's not going to go at this. He's second day draft pick for sure, which is third round or better, because he gained like 13, 15 pounds in the offseason and maintained his speed. So there are some positives. There's a lot that needs to be fixed on the defensive side. I would think, things like the eye discipline and also just staying in your positions, because App State runs a 3-4 base, but they run a lot of looks out of that base. So you have to be a very smart defender in order to, know what the different play calls are. So I think there's still a lot of work to win, especially going into this week. I think they'll definitely improve this week. I would be very surprised if App State gives up 63 points this week, even though it's Texas A&M.
So with that said, what kind of preview do you give or advice do you give to Georgia State as they get ready to face the same North Carolina team at home?
Well, does he even want to give some advice to Georgia State?
I can give some advice to Georgia State. I don't mind giving them little morsels of information.
That's awfully nice of you. Oh, well, okay. Thanks, TK.
I can be benevolent sometimes. I would say, just get your passing game going and get it, keep your receivers fresh, rotate some of your players if you can. And on defense, if you're going to blitz, make sure it gets there. Otherwise, just drop everyone and just play coverage, because their receivers are UNC was out without their best receiver from their week 0 game. So I don't know if he's coming back or not, but I would say just keep on going. And also Mac Brown has a penchant for completely blowing leads. There were 4 or 5 bad UNC fouls in that fourth quarter that otherwise would have sealed the game for them. But they committed defensive pass interference, defensive holding, targeting, whatever. They just kept on making these errors that kept App State in the game. So I would say, just stay in it. Don't lose the faith. And from what I saw against their game against South Carolina, they got a little bit of gas that they're cooking with, especially on defense.
How does App State rebound this week going into the hostile environment of Texas A&M?
Well, it's an opportunity game for App State. That's kind of what we've always thought is, we got these opportunity games to go into these big environments. And, 3-4 years ago, went into Penn State. No, I really thought we were going to get blown out, and we went to overtime. Went to Tennessee with the overtime. Obviously, Michigan was 15 years ago.
Never. Did you guys beat Michigan?
Apparently so. It was so long ago. Like, some of the players on this team were toddlers when that happened. So it was ages ago. It's like I'm old or something. But yeah, it's kind of the mythos of Appalachian State is to go into these big environments and make a good accounting of themselves. So I think, especially with Texas A&M, they had their quarterback threw some really bad interceptions last week. And last season in the limited time he did play, he also was interception prone. So we're thinking, hey, if we can get him out of a rhythm a little bit, then we can hang in there and, get to that fourth quarter, and then it's anybody's ball game.
Right. If they have trouble with Sam Houston, they're definitely going to have trouble with the Mountaineers.
You would think.
So TK, we love having you on the show. Thanks for giving us that analysis, that insider's view. Now, something that TK does on Twitter that you guys need to follow him on. TK. What was it? Highlander? TK
High Country.
TK High Country at TK High Country. He'll take the games and simplify them, and then give you sort of a quick rundown of how those games went. They're fascinating to look at. I wish I had the technical and ability and the time to do that myself, because that sounds like a lot of fun. What started you into that?
Well, I got in trouble when I was blogging one time for taking photos with using photos. So I decided, do something different. So a friend had shown me how to use a GIF maker, a screen capture GIF maker. And it just kind of started from there. And this was about 2015. And it just kind of snowballed from there. And it's something that it's time consuming, but something that I really enjoy because I get to learn about, game on a second look. And I have not done the North Carolina game yet because I got back from the mountains on Monday night and I am leaving in about 6 hours to go to the airport to fly to Texas.
Ooh, okay.
Because I got a 6 a.m. flight for some insane reason. I don't know who the idiot who booked that is.
Because you're just insane for the Mountaineers. So this is insane flights is what we expect you to get.
Yes, but that's something fun I do. If you want to follow me, just for I tweet my thoughts, and sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong, sometimes they're opinions, and we can disagree on them, or you can agree with them, and maybe we can become friends one day.
Well, I have never known you to have an errant opinion or observation. TK, thanks for being on the show. Good luck with Texas A&M. Bring back that Texas A&M feather and let's put it in the cap for the Sun Belt.
Absolutely.
So that was a great time there, recapping what was, like I said, the game of the year already in week 1. But I want to ask you this. We know the Appalachian State game was the best game. Chase Bryce had one of the best performances of the week. Who else really impressed you in week 1, though?
Well, the guy I saw in person was Todd Centeio. It was a little bit of a question mark at JMU's quarterback. Threw for 280 some yards and 6 touchdowns and rushed for 110 yards. So if he plays like that going forward, JMU's going to be a pretty tough team to beat. And I'm not expecting more 100-yard rushing games necessarily, but 6 touchdowns, no interceptions. That's the kind of thing they need to get out of him on a week-to-week basis.
I'm going to give you a team that I thought was an outstanding performance, and that was the Troy Trojans. 28-10 loss to Ole Miss, but Gunnar Watson, 275 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. The Trojans amassed 346 yards and forced 3 turnovers.
Yeah, you know what? I was watching that game in a bar in Jonesboro. I think I was watching the first quarter. I saw the first quarter of that game, and it didn't look good for Troy. Troy looked sort of out of whack. They didn't seem to have.
They looked timid.
Yeah, like they did. They just seemed really uncomfortable. And when I saw that final score, I was impressed because it did look like that Ole Miss was just going to take them to the boneyard there. Didn't happen. So I agree with you, Tibbs. That was a good game. Another thing that kind of caught my attention, even though it was against an FCS opponent, was Marshall had 2 running backs break 100 yards, and they both scored 2 touchdowns apiece. I do not have their names in front of me. I feel bad about that. But I was impressed seeing that Marshall could get that running game going and sort of demonstrate that they didn't need Rashid Ali to run the ball.
Yeah, Payne and Laborn are the 2 running backs you're talking about.
Yeah.
As a team, the Herd had 51 touches, 380 yards.
I think, and they get Notre Dame, they'll need every bit of that.
On an individual performance, I think a guy that I really liked was the quarterback there of Georgia Southern, Van Treese, 367 yards, 4 touchdowns, but no receiver went over 100 yards.
Has there ever been a quarterback at Georgia Southern that has put up those kind of numbers?
That was not a record. I did look at it. I don't remember what the record was, but that was not a record.
All right.
The Eagles only rushed for 133 yards, though.
Wow. Whoa. What the hell's happening?
I can't remember what the exact number is, but if he continues at that rate, he's going to break Georgia Southern's single season passing record probably by like week 6 or 7. Like, I can't remember what the number is, but I saw it at the beginning of the season. I was like, he's going to break that like midway through.
And if you saw the fan reaction in by halftime, it was like doom and gloom. They did not break away from Morgan State until much later in the game, and that's when they just started pouring it on. But I don't know if the fans in Statesboro even know how to react to this type of team. They're throwing the ball, they're making catches. You got quarterback out there throwing 300 yards a game. That must be just a wild alien experience for Statesboro.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be different, and they, not necessarily surprising that it took them a half to get going when everything is brand new.
So, Jeremy, last week,
yeah,
almost a 2-hour show. If there was ever the feedback,
here's what you said about the show. By the way,
what?
It's too long. That's what you said.
Well, that's because our DMs, people sliding into the DMs at Funbelt PC, kept saying it's too long. I can't get through it.
What can we say? We had a lot. I mean, come on. We had 14 games to talk about. It was the beginning of the year. It should, in my opinion, it should have been 3 times as long.
I think
that means that you're editing that episode. That's for sure.
For week 1, I think we can call that a very special episode.
Yes.
But
yes.
Every episode is special with Jeremy.
Yeah. Oh, it's special with you guys. I can feel the love right now. It's getting a little uncomfortable. But I think we should just move forward from this. What we got? Does nobody know what we have?
I think there's a new idea to try, isn't there?
Yes. All right. We're going to try something new, guys. We're going to try something new that gets things going. We're calling it Second and Short. And what that is we take 2 minutes to discuss each game on the docket. We've got 14 games on the docket. We're going to provide our penetrating analysis, and we only have 2 minutes to discuss each game. And I've got here a timer that will keep us on track. Are you guys ready to play?
Yes.
All right. Here we go. First game of week 2. Arkansas State at number 3 Ohio State. It's at 11 a.m. It's on the Big Ten Network. Tibbs, what are we going to see from this game?
That is the Ohio State, by the way, and we will see one of the best college football venues ever. We'll see the dotting of the script, and then we will see a straight-up whooping as Ohio State shows why they are number 3 in the nation and looking to move up into number 2.
You know what worries me the most about this is that Ohio State feels like they're like people kind of criticizing them for not scoring a lot of points on Notre Dame. I don't want them to take it out on Arkansas State.
I'm
seeing a 44.5 point line on this one.
The biggest of the week.
Yes. Can Arkansas State cover? I think they can. That's a huge line. I would never bet anybody to cover her. Yeah.
Yeah, and because the line is so big, Shane, it's like it makes me question everything I know. Like, do they know something going on in Ohio State that they feel like they have to run the score up on us? Now, I do know that Butch Jones said in an interview on Monday and then reiterated it on Tuesday that he has friends on the coaching staff at Ohio State. I hope those friends come through, not just for me as a fan, but John Q. Better, who's out there trying to make a buck off that big, huge line. Tibbs, do you take the points on that?
I wouldn't touch that game for anything because it's either going to be a blowout where Vegas knows that 44.5 doesn't even touch it, or it's going to be a lot closer than 44 points.
Okay, all right. Shane, do you take it? You got 12 seconds.
Yeah, I don't bet much, but I'd take the points there.
That's because Shane is an upstanding citizen and a member of the journalistic community.
I don't have a stomach for it.
Next game. This is for you, Tibbs. Southern Miss, who I know you really like. I don't know why I'm saying that. Southern Miss at number 15, Miami, not Ohio, 11 a.m. on the ACC network. What are we going to see out of this game, Tibbs?
It's all about the U, baby. I think until Southern Miss can find a quarterback and find somebody that is willing to take that Eagle offense and run with it, it's going to be a Frank Gore running show again. He'll probably play some Wildcat as quarterback, have another 100-yard game on the ground, but it's all about the U.
You know, you mentioned Gore earlier, 178 yards, 32 carries the guy had, a couple touchdowns, and a pass. I didn't even know he had a pass. Is Southern Miss just Frank Gore's kid?
Not at all. He's the freak of the Eagles, man. He can do it all. But he's one guy. He can't block. He can't play defense. Maybe he can. We just haven't seen it. Maybe he can kick, and that would help with their woes from that as well. But I think until they have a quarterback, this Eagles team is going to continue to struggle.
Shane, you know Miami. They're an East Coast team. What's Miami going to do to Southern Miss?
Like you said, if there's no quarterback, no real passing threat, it's going to be rough on Southern Miss. Sounds like they're going to, give a true freshman at least a few snaps to, try it out. Maybe he's the real deal. I don't know, but kind of throwing him right into the fire to go down to play a traditional powerhouse like that. But like Texas, the U is back, right? So it's a tough one.
Speaking of that, Shane, though, isn't Miami just one of those teams that always, is perceived as good at the beginning of the year, and then they kind of fall apart? Isn't this a team that Southern Miss can expose?
I think potentially. I think maybe especially potentially if it was the Southern Miss we thought we were going to get, but after week 1, they're back to the super bad gimmick. It's going to be tough.
All right,
Miami all-time 5-0 against Sun Belt Conference teams. 2 wins over FIU, 1 over Arkansas State, 2 over Appalachian State, and none of them have been close.
All right, that's a 24.5 games or 24.5 game point spread for the Hurricane. I don't know what to bet on that, but we can't talk about it because we've exceeded our 2 minutes. So we got to go on to the next game.
Let's do it.
And this one's for you, Shane.
Yeah.
I know you know all about Central Michigan. South Alabama at Central Michigan, 12 p.m. on ESPN+. What are we going to see out of the Chips?
I don't know a ton about Central Michigan. I can't. We're not doing the Maction podcast. I haven't studied up on them quite as much, but I don't know what to expect. It looks like they're favored.
I tell you one thing: they have a 6'10" quarterback in Daniel Richardson.
Yeah, who threw for a ton of yards last week.
424 yards, 4 touchdowns. It's against number 12 Oklahoma.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's going to be a challenge. And this is one of those games that we talk about where if you're a fan of the Sun Belt, you want to see them do well against leagues like the MAC, like Conference USA, like the Mountain West. And it was a little bit of a mixed bag for the league last week against those other group of 5 teams. So, it's a big game, I think, for South Alabama to kind of prove that they're, one of the challengers in the West.
The Governor's going to cruise in this one. South Alabama 3-2 all-time against MAC teams. Never played Central Michigan, though, but the Governor, he's winning it by a landslide.
Oh, that's right. Our good friend, Kane Womack.
Womack.
Yeah. He gets the Chippewas on this. I will say this is that, this kind of feels to me like the Texas State-Nevada game where you're peer conferencing and you want to see the Sun Belt team do very well. The Jags are just a better team, though, than Texas State. They crushed their FCS opponent. I don't think they scored more than 3 points.
7. Trash
them. A 5-point favorite. Is it something to put on? I'm sorry, what?
Nichols last week had a trash 7.
Oh, okay. Sorry. But the Chips are a 5-point favorite in this game. Is that fair?
Sure, because it's at Central Michigan, and so kind of the home field swing. I still, like I said, I like the Jaggy Wires, as you would say there, Jeremy.
Don't throw me under that bus. That just makes me look terrible.
I avoid saying it because that's a flyover country way.
Right, I just say Jags. I go, hey, the Jags. And I end up with that, or I'll call them South Bama, which they also hate. All right, we got to go off to our next guy. It's Second and Short with Fun Belt Podcast, talking about a big that's coming up. Marshall at number 8 Notre Dame, 1:30 p.m. on NBC or the Peacock. Shane, I need your most penetrating thoughts on this game.
My penetrating thoughts is we didn't learn anything about Marshall because they rolled over Norfolk State so bad that the game was over when it started. Other than the fact, as you pointed out earlier, they did have 2 other guys rush for 100 yards. So not 100%, Rasheen Ali in the running game, which is, I think, that's not necessarily a huge surprise. We knew they had a deep running back room, but, if they have what it takes to hang around with Notre Dame, I have no idea until they take the field.
Here's what makes me a little scared for Marshall. I feel good about Marshall having seen the 200-yard rushers come through on that. But the only way that Notre Dame remains relevant in the playoff conversation is to go undefeated the rest of the year. They're not going to try. They're not going to stumble against Marshall. Marshall's going to have to play their A game. Tibbs, do you think I'm right on that?
Very much so. After that 21-10 loss last week to the Ohio State, Notre Dame's got to run the tables in order to even be in the conversation of trying to get into the playoff. Even if it was expanded this year, they would have to do that to get into the conversation. Notre Dame never played a Sun Belt Conference team, so Marshall needs to go out and represent well, but I think it's all Irish.
Irish is a 20-point favorite, and I kind of like that, to take the points on that. What do you think, Shane? I know Shane doesn't wager because he's a fine, upstanding member of the community, but if you were, would you take those points?
I think so. I'm really not sure, though. I go back and forth. I think Marshall's going to be pretty good. I don't really know much about Notre Dame yet at this point in the season. But I would be surprised if Marshall's competitive, but my time's up. So I'm going to say yes, they'll beat it by 20 or more.
Thanks for adhering to the rules of the game. I appreciate that. Yeah. All right, you know what? Appalachian State versus North Carolina, very entertaining game. The reward for Mountaineers in the loss is to go all the way to Texas and play number 6 Texas A&M, 2:30 p.m. on ESPN2. Shane, does Appalachian State have a chance in this?
I don't know. The Texas A&M press conference made it sound like they think out in College Station that Appalachian State has a chance. They were talking them up a lot. They're going to have to hold them to less than 63 points, I think, to have a chance. Yeah. Going out on a limb here. But, maybe that was just, a bad day for the Appalachian State defense. Maybe we'll see more out of the Mountaineers. Maybe they're fired up now to go out and prove that was not what we can expect from them on a week-to-week basis. But
last season, I said that the way you beat Appalachian State's through the air. That's exactly what North Carolina started doing. They started making passes and just eating away at yardage that way. Texas A&M had trouble in the air. They had a few turnovers against Sam Houston as a result. Maybe Appalachian State is maybe in Texas A&M they kind of find that they might be more comfortable than they were against the Tar Heels. What do you think, Tibbs? Any chance?
I really hope that the Aggies fall. At the same time, I did bet them to win the SEC, and I think even a bet of them winning a national title. So from that stance, I hope they win, but I do think that it's the Mountaineers that can actually pull this out if that secondary gets it in gear, because that will be the difference of the game of whether or not All-American Stephen Jones and company can get it right this week.
Yeah, it will be on the shoulders of Cam Peoples and Nate Noel, 2 of Appalachian State's outstanding running backs, and of course Chase Price, who is a man on the mission. Aggies are favored by 19. Shane, is that a fair assessment?
I think that's a pretty good line. I still think, if App State plays well, they can cover that and maybe even be in a position to win. But going into the season, I said the successful non-conference season for App State was beat North Carolina and be in the game going into the fourth quarter at A&M. Now you kind of got to flip it. Hope they can get their upset this week instead.
I don't want to dive too deeply in FCS games simply because there isn't a lot of compelling FCS stuff. But Norfolk at James Madison is interesting to me for one reason only. James Madison comes in, beats Middle Tennessee State. Sort of a kind of down FBS program, yes. but it has a history of success. Is there any drop off or letdown for James Madison hosting Norfolk State, 3 p.m. on ESPN 3?
That's definitely what the coaching staff is emphasizing this week, is to not have that drop off of execution and focus, things like that, because JMU will win this game going away even if they don't play well. I mean, they've destroyed Norfolk State every time they've ever played recently. They've been known to put up 70 points against this program. It's not going to be a close game. What you want to see is execution, especially in the first half until the starters go out, which probably won't be until late in the third quarter, which is kind of the MO for Curt Cignetti.
Well, you saw the Dukes in action personally. Is there anything that the Dukes need to work on, even after watching them dismantle the Blue Raiders?
You still want to see the cornerbacks improve, especially when you're looking at the secondary. They got a young group of cornerbacks who, basically last week was their entire starting experience in college football. And there were times where Middle Tennessee State had somebody open and they just didn't hit the pass. Part of that was the pressure they were under because the defensive line played so well, but you kind of want to see them be able to lock down an overmatched team this week.
That's exactly right. When you have a team like this, the closing escrow on that account is crucial. You want to play winning football from top to bottom. Look, we filled up the 2 minutes. Here's a game, guys, that I find fascinating. Fascinating because it really is like they took the two teams that really bugged the ACC and they pit them together. Old Dominion at East Carolina, 5 p.m. What do you think of this game, Shane?
Oh, I think it'll be, as we talked about ODU, how much do we take away from upsetting Virginia Tech? Was that all, riding emotions and electric home crowd and everything? I mean, I think we kind of see if they're for real when they go to ECU, established AAC program. JMU's former head coach, Mike Houston, down there is turning it around at ECU. They almost knocked off NC State last week. So I think two pretty solid mid-major teams going against each other. And it's a regional, we talk about regional rivalries for Sun Belt. This is a regional rivalry. It's just down the coast. They're real close to each other. It's probably, I'd say, ECU's campus is probably closer to ODU than JMU's campus, even though JMU's in the same state. So it's a game that people will be really excited about. It should be a fun one.
Hey, Tibbs, do you think Hayden Wolf is a quarterback that could actually lead Old Dominion? Did he just look bad against Virginia Tech, or is this going to be a problem down the road?
I don't think we know yet. I think this will be the game that lets us know whether the Monarchs are for real or not this season. I think that the Pirates are one of the better teams in the AAC. So this is a huge game for them. If it's the Monarchs team that played against Virginia Tech, there's no way they beat East Carolina.
And when ECU is good, I mean, even when they're not very good, it's a tough place to play because, they'll have 40,000 or more in the stands for this one. That's 50,000, I think, something last week. So it's a tough place to play. And as ECU gets better, kind of being rebuilt here after some down years, it's going to be a tough environment for ODU.
I definitely think that this would be a huge win for the conference, though, winning this game. I wouldn't say it's bigger than the Texas A&M, but it would definitely be a close second of how big this game is for the conference.
If the team that was picked to finish last in the East Division gets two really good non-conference wins to start the season, it does say something good about the Sun Belt. It certainly does.
Absolutely. All right, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time, not even our 2 minutes, on Gardner-Webb and Coastal Carolina, being played at 5 p.m. on ESPN Plus. The only note I have on this is, did the Chants ever leave Conway when it's the OOC? It seems like they're always playing at home for their OOC.
Kudos to them and their athletic director for getting it scheduled.
Yeah, well done. Everybody wants to go to Myrtle Beach, I guess. Hang out, get some sun before it gets getting cold. I don't know anything about Gardner Webb. You know what? I bet I know someone who does. Shane, what do we know about Gardner Webb?
It's somewhere in North Carolina.
Yes.
Not that far from Charlotte. Yeah, other than that.
I believe the Bulldog is their mascot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we got that.
They gave Virginia a good game in the NCAA tournament in basketball a few years ago. But other than that, don't know much about the football Bulldogs.
Now, we do know about the Chanticleers is that they beat Army, which Army has a history of just making teams look bad at the beginning of the year. And Chanticleers had a little trouble figuring them out at the beginning, ending up pulling through. You got to like Grayson McCall. I didn't get to see the game. Did anybody see Grayson McCall make a throw?
Did not. Only the
highlights. See any of that one. Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to have to look back on that because really the whole season for Coastal Carolina relies on whether or not Grayson McCall can make the throws. He's got a lot of young wide receivers. He's got a lot of new guys on the team. His leadership's going to be important, so we'll just have to see. And I'm going to cut off Gardner Webb and Coastal Carolina 10 seconds early so we can move into the next one. Eastern Michigan, which has the worst turf in all of college football, but thank God we won't have to see it because they're visiting Louisiana, 6 p.m. on the NFL Network, of all places. Tibbs, what are we going to see out of this game?
I'm glad that we don't have to see the parking lot filled again this year. I'm anxious to see what the Cajuns do. Chandler Fields looked pretty good last week. The defense was a little shaky. The running game wasn't quite what we expected with Chris Smith.
All right.
But the passing game was there. Johnny Lumpkin, Chandler Fields, it was legit. I think that the crowd is going to be over the top as always in Cajun Field. They're running all kinds of promotions as they try to look to extend this 14-game winning streak to 15. I like the Cajuns all day.
One of the worst college football games I've ever seen happened last year between Eastern Michigan and Texas State. Texas State just looked terrible against Eastern Michigan. There's something about Eastern Michigan, I think, that just gets in the heads. And I actually had this game as kind of an upset. Cajuns are picked 11.5 points to win this game. I feel like maybe Eastern Michigan not only covers but wins outright. Shane, make me feel better about that prediction.
I'm not so high on that prediction. I think I can see Eastern Michigan covering, but I have a hard time seeing them winning on the road. As you said, going for that win number 15 in a row, keeping that streak alive. It's a lot to play for. I think Louisiana, the Cajuns will keep that streak alive. And
another streak that the Cajuns are looking to keep alive. They've won 3 straight against the MAC in each of the past seasons, beating Ohio last year, Miami of Ohio in the Lending Tree Bowl, and Ohio the year before that.
Oh, well, then you know what? It seems to me that the Cajuns are well-versed at beating the MAC and should beat Eastern Michigan. I still feel a little bit nervous about that. That's fine. I'm going to acquiesce to your wisdom. You guys are a lot smarter than me, although I've already made the bet, so I don't think I can take it back. Not that I bet, because betting is unseemly, and I'm a pristine member of the college football community. Next game that we have on the docket is another one of those games that I think we can talk too much about, but sort of a makeup game. Alabama A&M at Troy, 6 p.m., ESPN 3, FCS game for Troy coming up after that big, hard-fought game against Ole Miss. Tibbs, is there anything we need to look for in this game?
Just fine-tuning of that offense. Like I said, Gunnar Watson looked pretty good passing. Just how well does he spread the ball around? Do they come out injury-free? What's that defense look like, knowing that they struggled a little bit to shut down the Ole Miss offense last week? Just kind of fine-tuning the game before they move on to the next game.
Now, do you think that his performance against Ole Miss solidified Watson as the starter? They brought in the guy from Western Kentucky late in the season, and you're like, uh-oh, do they not believe in Gunnar Watson? What did you see out of Gunnar Watson that made you think, okay, he might be the guy?
I mean, he's got game experience, so he was kind of calm, cool, collective in the pocket. It was just another game for him. It wasn't like he had to go out and prove himself. It wasn't like he had to go out and force passes. He was there just another day at the office.
Tibbs, do you know anything about Alabama A&M? You usually have your fingers on the pulse of this type of regional FCS program. What do you know about A&M?
They are swagtastic, baby, and that is another Bulldog game invading Veterans Stadium.
All these Bulldogs. It's crazy. We got to put these dogs down. Shane, do you have anything to add to that discussion before we move on to someone else?
Not really. Nah, he covered that one.
All right, then a full 20 seconds. That's what we've got. We could tack that onto this one. I don't think we're going to need to. All right. Florida International at Texas State, 6 p.m. ESPN 3. Texas State, probably the most disappointing performance of Week 1. They get Florida International, former Sun Belt team. You love the Boob Cats, Tibbs. Are the Boob Cats going to, show us something this time?
I'm going to San Marcos. They damn well better.
They're going to have your luxury seat, your 7-7 drink, maybe some nachos, and treat you like royalty for this game.
So what's crazy about this game, they only actually played one time, and that was last year.
Wow.
At Florida International, where the Texas State actually picked up that win 23-17 in overtime. They tried to lose it, but were just unable to. Damn it, McBride. Where are you for me this year?
Yeah, and Florida International, both FAU and FIU kind of jut out of the conversation, and when it came to realignment, I guess they still have some problems. Here's the thing: FIU just barely beat their FCS opponent last week, Bryant. They won by 1 point. It was something like 31-30, something crazy like that. So FIU, a team that's struggling, they've got the Bobcats as a 14-point favorite. Is that accurate?
That's my presence and the Wacker Field special.
I'm sorry, the what?
Jim Wacker Field.
Okay. Shane, do you have anything to add to Shane Wackerfield?
Just that, 14-point favorites. They might not see that a whole lot this year. For Jake Spavital's sake, they better take care of business, I think, in this one, or the heat is going to get turned up even more on them.
Holy shit, Shane, you're absolutely right about that. I don't think Spavital survives if Texas State doesn't come away with a win. I don't know why I feel that way. I just feel very nervous for Spavital for this game.
Yeah, so, I'm not necessarily calling a mid-season firing or anything, but I just feel like if they don't win this one, it gets much tougher down the line.
How can you think that the Bobcats are improving if they don't win this game at home versus Florida International, a team that barely beat their opponent? So we'll just have to see. Yes. Excuse me. This game, we could probably talk 2 minutes. We could probably talk 20 minutes. We're only going to talk 2 because this is second and short, Tibbs. We can't break out of the format. Georgia Southern at Nebraska, 6:30 p.m. on the FS1 station. How great is it for Georgia Southern to be getting Nebraska at this time?
Exactly. I think that they can go in and jump on the shit show and get Scott Frost ran out of town by having a corntastic game.
Yeah. What is going on with Nebraska? They lose to Northwestern in Dublin in an epic fashion. Then they found themselves tied 7-7 with North Dakota at halftime in week 2. I don't want to talk about Nebraska. Nebraska is some other conference, to me a lesser conference than the Sun Belt. What do you think about Georgia Southern's chances of coming into Nebraska and embarrassing Scott Frost even further, Shane?
I think it's a possibility. I mean, you see the way Georgia Southern kind of turned it on last week. Maybe it was clicking, that new offense, new style, new coach, new quarterback, all that stuff. Maybe it clicked at halftime, and maybe they're just ready to go on a roll. I mean, Nebraska's far from world beaters, far from unbeatable. And as they struggle, like how how much is it that a team that is optimistic about where they're going versus a team that's wondering what week of the season is our coach going to get fired? Maybe there's that mental edge to it too, like that. Georgia Southern's just playing for more.
Yeah, could you just see Cornhusker players kind of laying down just to get their coach fired? I don't see that happening.
I don't know. I don't see that, but I mean, when you're talking about the guy who recruited you there, he's on the hot seat. That's not an easy thing for players to deal with, and it happens in this sport. But sometimes you see teams really struggle with that.
I think this Vegas line, Tibbs, is a little bit ridiculous. 23.5 points in favor of the Cornhuskers. Why does that feel so ridiculous to me?
They'll never see what's coming with that new found passing attack of the Eagles.
Absolutely. Don't you think that they're kind of preparing for Georgia Southern as this triple option team that likes to tackle or likes to block below the knees? And now they're getting this sort of West Coast air raid offense.
But
I don't know. I have a feeling they've probably heard of Clay Helton before. So.
It reminds me a lot of that year that Georgia Southern went to Florida, where Georgia Southern definitely had the better team. But it didn't seem real that they were going to go in there into the swamp and get the win. I think the Eagles get it this week.
Yeah, but here's the difference. I think didn't they not throw a single pass in that game against Florida?
If they did, it was single-digit passes.
I think that I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong, but I think that they didn't throw a single pass in that game, which you won't be getting from Clay Helton. All right, last game. I'm putting it on the timer.
It's not the last game. We skipped one. We'll have to go back.
Wait. What did we skip?
We skipped UNC and Georgia State.
Oh my God, we did.
Are we recording now?
Oh yeah, no, we're recording, and and here it is. It's right here. You know what? I am going back.
Okay.
11 a.m.
I put it in the chat, and you didn't notice. So.
Well, I was looking at my notes. And I'm not trying to diss Georgia State. Georgia State's fine. They kind of disappointed me a little bit. They kind of fell apart against South Carolina. I think it was some weird score like 9-8 or something crazy at halftime. They ended up kind of letting the game get away from them. I know that Darren Granger, the starting quarterback for Georgia State, had a
first time you ever remembered his name?
No! I remember his name. I'm making a point to remember his name. Now they get North Carolina, the same team that Appalachian State just tangled with. Shane, you know these two teams, right? You know these two teams like the back of your own hand. What are we going to see out of this game?
I think it's probably the league's best shot at a Power 5 win this week. Still not super impressed with North Carolina. They've managed to get through a couple of tough games, 2-0, but it should be one of the better atmospheres Georgia State has at home this year. They were competitive with South Carolina. I think they've got a shot to this one. I'm not necessarily picking them to win, but that 7-point spread sounds about right to me. I think it's going to be a competitive game.
Tibbs, I just felt like Granger should have been playing better, and I feel like a little nervous about that offense. I know the run game did okay against South Carolina. Why is Granger making me nervous? Is it just because South Carolina's got the great defense, or is Granger having trouble?
I think it's a little bit of both. The defense for the Gamecocks had the pressure that it was Javon Clowney's number retiring, so the defense felt like they had to kind of step up in that game. I don't think Georgia State can get it this week, though. I think it's another close game, but I think that the Powder Blue go 2-0 against the Sun Belt.
Yeah, here's the thing, too, about the game with Georgia State is that I've been hearing it online, which is not the best place to hear anything, but there just doesn't seem to be a lot of energy around the game. And that's what Georgia State needs. Georgia State needs the fan base to come out at 11 a.m. and cheer on this Panthers team against North Carolina. That should be a huge moment for the program. And I'm going.
No one will be at that game.
I'm going to be so disappointed if they show like the fan shots and it's just a sparsely populated stadium. That's going to make me mad. I know Georgia State, they usually shrug at that kind of stuff, but they really should have people come to that game.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that they're just kind of in a position where they kind of win this game to get those people on board. They're just in a little bit different situation. I mean, we always talk about markets versus, fan bases and everything, and they're the big market team in this league, and they've got to deal with the fact that it's all dogs all the time down there with a little bit of Georgia Tech mixed in, and then they're a little bit down the totem pole.
Oh yeah, that's absolutely.
But a big win could get the bandwagon going for them.
Yeah, and they could get the bandwagon, and quite frankly, they will print up a banner and hang it if they beat North Carolina. Am I right, Tibbs?
You are not incorrect.
All right, last game for the second and short, which it's an FCS game, make good game, but I think it's very important for ULM. It's Nichols at ULM, 7 p.m. ESPN 3. My only
last game of the night.
What?
Last game of the night.
Last game of the night. So here's the thing: you could be like, "Wow, I've seen a lot of great Sun Belt games." This is the dessert. This is your creme de menthe. This is your liqueur, your dessert coffee. Nichols at ULM. Tibbs, are you worried about Nichols? Because I feel like you are a little bit. I feel like that you see Nichols as one of those FBS teams that can sneak up on you.
I think it's that, and I think that the Warhawks are still licking their wounds from Texas.
Yeah.
Had a backup quarterback, a couple guys on defense that got banged up in that Texas game. So you really don't know exactly what you're going to get with those backup guys coming in. You're not full force. But yeah, it's a scary game. It's a track game. It does give me a little bit of hope knowing that South Alabama really manhandled them last week, but that was last week and this is this week.
Yeah. So I guess what we're going to see is what's the difference between South Alabama and ULM?
Boogie night.
Absolutely. Shane, I want you to put the cherry on top of this segment. Tell me about Nichols and ULM.
All I know is it's the last game of the night. I should be home in time to see the second half of it. So I'll get a little bit of a look at ULM, and maybe I'll have more to say about them next week.
All right, yeah, it'll be good because you can fire up the old ESPN 3 machine, and sit down. I don't know how you access your ESPN 3. I do it through my Hulu, so I can sit down on my TV and watch that. So I'm looking forward to that game. I'll watch. Hey, Tibbs, I'll watch that game.
I will have it on my phone or iPad while I am in San Marcos, and probably be kicked out of the press box for cheering, although it will have nothing to do with the game in front of me.
Listen, you need to exercise professionalism when you're in the press box. The press box is not for cheering. The press box is for cold analysis.
Yeah.
By the way, this is just a side. All right, by the way, second and short's over. Congratulations. You guys did a great job.
Did we make it?
All
we got
of you.
We got a first down.
Did we get a first down?
We got a first down on second and short.
Yes! Move the chains. All right. So you guys have all been in the press boxes before, right? You guys in more press boxes than me. I've been like in one, and that's at Arkansas State. Have you ever been in a press box that was just completely unprofessional? Guys cheering, guys like hooting and hollering for the home team. Have you ever been in that situation?
Experienced it this past weekend at Texas.
Yeah, occasionally, yeah.
What? Oh, you too, Shane?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember where, but I definitely experienced that. Yeah.
Now, Tibbs, have you covered high school before?
Yes.
How is the atmosphere in the press box different in high school games than it is at college games?
It's unorganized chaos, and exactly what you would think, that it's a high school press box where they're trying to figure out how far was that run. I wasn't paying attention. Where did he start from? Where's he at now? Who's that? Who's she down there with? Where's my hot dog? I mean, it's complete chaos.
The guy running the scoreboard has something to say about what the kid did in history class last week.
And he's probably smoking a cigarette also.
Now, at Arkansas State, they really do try to keep, a professional decorum going. They'll every now and then they'll put up a PA announcement, hey, it's the press box, everybody calm down, which generally is obeyed. And then, we do have like the SID and then their team coming out with the statistics, 42-yard run from whatever and whatever. So that's really nice. That actually makes it to where you can watch the game and not have to beg the scorekeeper to say, hey, who made that catch? So that's really nice. All right. I think we got this show finished, which means, Tibbs.
Plugs, promos, parting shots.
Who should go first on that?
Shane had the party slip.
Shane was late. We had an interview. Shane comes in like midway through the interview. You would think that he would come in and immediately have a question to try to make up for that. Say a word. So now you're on, Shane. Okay. You're going to have to come up with something.
You guys had it handled. I wasn't going to interrupt, but or repeat something you already asked. But plugs. I'll just say follow me on Twitter.
Okay.
Because I'll be tweeting the rest of the week on Saturdays. If you want to know what's going on in JMU game, want to know what's going on in Sunbelt, follow me. I'll tweet about it. Shane _ DNR Sports. Parting shot. Just I'm glad to be out covering games, see them.
Ooh.
Like it was a fun start to the season, and not expecting to be at a particularly competitive game on Saturday, but I still just kind of love being there. It's fun.
Yeah, you know what? Those type of games are actually, kind of nice. There's not a lot of pressure. You enjoy the fireworks. Now, if you guys start losing, well, then it might be the worst game of your life.
I'll be fine.
Tibbs, I'm going to go next because I want you to have the last one.
Always.
I want you to have the last one. I'm going to have the middle word. My parting thought was going to be like this real long sort of missive about coaching salaries and how obnoxious they are. And Dabo Sweeney's got this new $11 million per year deal, and about how America isn't falling behind on football, they're falling behind on education. Why don't we invest the same amount in education as we do in coaching? And I was going to get, all like high and mighty about that. But instead, my parting shot is something I didn't realize that I'm sure you did, Tibbs. It's probably fine 24/7, is that Coach Nick Saban has not lost an OOC regular season game since that loss against the Warhawks. That means that beating the Warhawks beating Alabama has put a curse on the rest of college football that we have to endure year after year. Saban destroying every OOC opponent he sees just because he had the humiliation of being destroyed by the hands of the Warhawks. What did he do, Tibbs, to break this terrible, awful curse that has befallen on our college football community? That is my parting shot. I want you to think about that, but then also follow me on Hellraiser or follow me at A-State Fan Rules on Twitter. But you can also read my stuff on hellraiser.com. Lots of great stuff. We'll keep you updated. Thank you very much. Tibbs, finish us off.
You can't mess with the curse of the chief on the bayou.
Is that what that is?
That is very much
okay.
The curse of the chief.
All right, because I feel like maybe it deserves a documentary.
Oh, it would be a very good ESPN 30 for 30. My plug, obviously, Warhawk Report, Warhawk _report, headed to San Marcos this weekend to check out some more Fun Belt football as FIU takes on Texas State. DM's always open on Fun Belt PC. Drop us a line, drop us an email, funbeltpc@gmail.com. Always looking forward to hearing from the fans, and God only knows what we're going to get. Some stuff we can share, other stuff we can't. It is what it is, but it's always entertaining.
Yeah, we don't censor anybody. If you want, to be crass, you go ahead. We're Fun Belt Podcast. We can take that. We're grown-ass men. We can do that.
I'm over 40.
For Dusty Thibodeaux of the Warhawk Report and Shane Mettlen of, oh my God, is it the Record? No.
The Daily News Record.
The Daily News Record. Some newspaper way out east that nobody reads. I want to say good night from Fun Belt Podcast. Thanks for joining us. We'll try to keep it shorter next week.
Edit that out, Dusty.
Your neighborhood just got cooler with Kroger Delivery's refrigerated trucks. Simply order groceries at the same great prices online as in-store, and we'll bring them to you fresh every time. And if that wasn't cool enough, you can now earn 4 times the fuel points after 4 with your digital coupon. Choose a next-day Kroger delivery time slot for 4 p.m. or later on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Must deliver by February 4th. Restrictions apply. See Kroger.com for details.
This is a mini meditation guided by Bombas. Repeat after me. I'm comfy. I'm cozy. I have 0 blisters on my toes. And that's because I wear Bombas, the softest socks, underwear, and t-shirts that give back. 1 purchased equals 1 donated. Now go to bombas.com/listen and use code LISTEN for 20% off your first purchase. That's bombas.com/listen and use code LISTEN at checkout.
Driving on stormy nights can become so difficult that you may wish you had the eyes of a night creature, like an owl or a tarsier. What's a tarsier? Well, it's like a... Look, it doesn't matter. Bosch Night Performance Wiper Blades reduce blur and glare, clearing away rain, so you can drive even better than a tarsier, whatever that is. Night vision has evolved. Bosch Night Performance Wiper Blades.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are now boarding Group A. Please have your boarding passes ready to scan. If your phone is cracked, old, or was chewed up by your Chihuahua travel companion, please refrain from holding up the line. And instead, simply go to Verizon and trade in any phone in any condition from one of their top brands for the new Samsung Galaxy S25 Plus with Galaxy AI on Unlimited Ultimate and a watch or tab. Also, on them. Service plan required for watch or tab. Trade in and additional terms apply. See Verizon.com for details.